Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today we have with us Luke Monteleone. He's a relationship who specializes in divine union. And so I thought today would be really appropriate to have an episode specifically dedicated to divine union and what it is and how it's different from twin flame union, also soulmate relationships, as well as even different from codependent relationships. And a lot of times when people think they're in a really healthy relationship, but maybe that's not quite the case. And so welcome, Luke. Thank you so much for being here today. And also I invite you to introduce yourself and share with everyone a bit more about yourself and what brought you into specializing in divine union.
Thank you, Nikki. Thanks for having me here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name's Luke Monteleone. So divine union. What brought me to divine union? Goodness. The guidance of God, specifically, if we're just leading off with a bang here. It's been something that, perhaps by no coincidence, in my life, I've struggled in relationships. I was born into a family that was not the quintessential role model, if you will, or model relationship of what it meant to be loving, of being cooperative, of co-creating something beautiful, where these family systems, I believe, are designed to be the breeding ground, to be the incubator for us to go out into the world and really be successful, to create deep, fulfilling, nourishing relationships, to have the resilience and the confidence to go out into the world and to share our gifts and to be beacons of light and to share our love and to create love with one another. And so union for me, as it was given to me, blessed with as a part of my purpose in this lifetime, was essentially the template. It was the map to going from not so obviously dysfunctional, which I come from America. It's sort of the norm in the US, the dysfunction, even amongst white collar, seemingly successful families. Particularly there, it even becomes more dysfunctional. And so, to no fault of anyone, because I believe that we all came here to be cycle breakers for our lineage and to rewrite the relational narrative and create this new paradigm of union consciousness. I was gifted a template and a remembrance, more importantly, of how to go from significantly disconnected, a product of trauma on every level, to learning to come back into connection with God, with myself, with my body, with my spirit, and with all of life, but especially with my beloved and the beloveds in my life.
Beautiful. So beautiful. And I feel I have a similar journey in the sense of having the remembrance of what divine union was in other lifetimes, specifically my Egypt life, and really knowing what the frequency was and is, and that knowing that flavor and that essence and
the frequency and the energy that gets co-created when we're in this level of a relationship. And I totally agree with some of what you were sharing, that a divine union relationship that's different from another kind of relationship, whether it be the extreme, which the extreme polar opposite would be like a toxic relationship, is where the divine union relationship really activates us into our ultimate potential. It's part of its function, so that we can then share our gifts with the world in a bigger way. So it's really a creative relationship where the forces, a lot of even the sexual energy is used for creation energy, the love energy. And so you're spending less time. It doesn't mean it's not challenging and that we're learning, growing, and evolving, but it's less time in the drama and more time in creation, in not only between each other and our lives together, but it's the creation for how we make our community better. We bring in the new earth paradigm together. So really we're like these two pillars of light that come to share gifts with the world in a bigger way. And it's a technology that's working on our souls and us as individuals in this lifetime to awaken more of our potential. And so it's like we're even more powerful together.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. And what I find interesting in that is that I think we're actually learning to bridge the quote unquote drama that you speak with the collective or the unified mission of two sovereign individuals that come together with a deep, deep soul resonance that are here to fulfill often a very synergistic mission with one another. And of course, that's not just an outward mission, right? As much as it is an inward mission, again, to be cycle breakers for our lineage, to finish and complete traumas that are still unresolved from our ancestors, that still keep us shackled within this material realm that we call human life. And so it's like it's for the alchemists. Union is for the alchemists, the ones that are ready to transmute the shadow into the light, into the mission, into the loving, beautiful purpose that they're here to fulfill in this lifetime together. And if you know anything about relationship, that's not always so easy now, is it? No. Interesting how that goes.
Absolutely. And what I have found as someone who's been on the journey and thinking like my last relationship was the one that was, and I could see how still there's this technology of every relationship activating, triggering, catalyzing, where there's still these parts to heal. And so much of it, so much of what I had have just healed was in breaking the karmic pattern and the ancestral and the generational patterns that I inherited just because I was born into this lineage of women. And the lesson was, are you going to break the cycle or are you going to continue and keep on? And so part of our work, like you said, is being the generational breakers. And I think anytime that there's challenge or patterns in relationships that are really hard to break, you're like, but I don't get it. Like, I know with my conscious mind that things can and should be different, but for some reason I find myself cycling again and again. That one of the number one things to do is look generationally and ancestrally for where this is in your cells and you're living out this pattern that continues to replay itself. And we're so attracted to the person that mirrors this pattern to us. And so that's why we feel this strong attraction to people, because they're the perfect makeup to support us in healing that very thing. And Absolutely. I've always found this to be so powerful, where people overlook and they think it's only about now or that relationship. And it's like, no, it might even be past life, or it might even be your grandmother's or your great grandmother's. And so recently I've been healing like my great grandmother's things. Right. And feeling so liberated after as well. And being like, thank God I didn't have my children yet, so that I don't pass this on to them.
Oh, yeah, that's really beautiful. Bless you for doing that work. Yeah, and for everyone listening that's doing that work, you truly are changing the world through that deep, deep, deep contribution and service. You said some really incredible things. I think specifically the ancestral work and the remembrance. I think of oftentimes, the way that the biochemical makeup is such, I'm sure you understand this. There's actually an incredible modality that I recommend to all listeners to check out. It's called imago relationship therapy. And it speaks to a lot of this and kind of brings it down to earth. And essentially what it says is that we're attracted to a mate with the opposite adaptation to the same developmental wound.
This must be a really important episode because I didn't have any technical difficulties earlier, but right now it's like glitchy.
It's incredibly important. And I think to share these transmissions with the world, there are a number of forces, as you're probably aware, that do not want this information, this level of awareness and consciousness getting out to the collective masses. And so, in doing this work, the number of attacks that I have personally been under or subjected to consistently has been pretty absurd, but it's actually just allowed me to reinforce, to double and triple and quadruple down on why it is that I am here to serve this mission. And so we're here.
Yeah. And you actually are bringing up a good point that I didn't even think we would talk about here, but I feel like these forces are what are behind like the narcissist empath relationships. And that a lot of people who are destined for divine union go through the initiation of those kinds of relationships because they have to really consciously choose not and choose to break free from those type of forces that are working through people. And specifically divine feminine women can find themselves in these kinds of like almost like it's a trap because it siphons energy and really steals energy away from the greater mission, creating the new earth, harmony, peace, love, and then bringing the new generation and the starseeds that want to incarnate through these healthier containers, because these other forces want to perpetuate the dysfunction and the fear and the drama and the trauma because they feed off of that.
Absolutely.
And so a big part of our work is to see all of that drama distortion and really choose no. Like I am not going to participate in this, and I'm going to choose divine union. I'm going to choose the higher timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really fascinating topic, something I've had to explore both personally and with a number of clients. And, I think it's really appealing, alluring for us to kind of get into this narrative that I think has a lot of origins in essentially Christianity, which is kind of like the evil versus the light, the dark versus the light. And while I feel like there's an element of that, I also feel like if you look at it from a quantum physics perspective or a metaphysical perspective, we're looking at the concept of duality, where the light cannot live or exist without the dark. And I think that most of us come to planet Earth to experience that duality, right? The humanity and the divinity, these seeming paradoxes that I think have been the source of actually creating a level of divisiveness. Of course, the agenda's out there to create greater and greater divide, but we're here as the alchemists to really bridge that gap, right, between the dark and the light. And so while, I have, of course, at times a very little tolerance for narcissistic personality characteristics, I think also each and every one of us, there's a part of that lives inside of us in a certain capacity. There's a lot of us that have been subjected to people who have had those types of characteristics, especially as they were kind of normalized in previous generations. And so it's like, it's one thing to be completely intolerant to someone who has that type of affliction or that type of adaptation. And I feel like as the alchemist, being on the hero's journey, we're here actually to learn and to integrate and to liberate ourselves from the shackles of what a number of these characters with these labels that we'll say essentially are embodying at this given moment, in order to reach essentially the destination of quote unquote enlightenment, which is the poor way of putting it, but to really liberate ourselves from this matrix, it's sort of enslavement, consciousness and existence within the material plane. So I just want to add that piece in as my perspective, not saying it has to resonate with everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I call the initiation of those kinds of relationships, because sometimes the point of that kind of relationship is to leave it and choose to not participate in that lower vibrational field. And the moment we say no to things, we're closing down those timelines, and then we're opening up the higher timelines. So it serves the evolution of our soul to go through those, I call them initiations, when there are these challenging experiences and relationships. Because a lot of times they are breaking the generational karma, and then also breaking cycles that keep us in lower vibrational fields, so that our soul can expand and experience higher levels of true love.
Yeah.
And so that kind of brings me to what I want to talk about next, which is, I really moved away from twin flame energy, because I feel like there's been like almost like the infiltration of these energies into the twin flame template. And this whole, like, there's the avoidant, and there's the chaser, and the runner, and the chaser, and all these kinds of dynamics that are not union. It's like separation, really, that are stemmed in fear, and that are really not the template of divine union. And I think that sometimes people get trapped in those cycles as well, and think like, oh, they just didn't do their healing yet, and so they're running, and so I need to just like hold the field and hold love and trust they're going to come back to our union, And so even when I see posts about twin flames, I like don't even click on them anymore, because I feel that like the whole twin flame wording is, and sometimes it can almost seem like there's trauma bonding in that field. And so I've really moved into divine union, and really about meeting our divine complement, and our divine counterpart as the higher vibrational frequency to connect into, and less so in the unhealed aspects of ourselves, because I do believe that we're all like self-fulfilling prophecies, and what we project into the field and what we expect is what we're going to receive back. And so the way twin flame dynamics was talked about for so long, it's like, yeah, that's going to be the person that's going to make you grow the most, and it's going to be painful, but that's normal. So it's like normalizing all the suffering and the pain and the separation that would come from the twin flame union. And so I feel like now we're really using the terminology of divine union to distinguish from that unhealed template. And I'd love to hear what you feel about that.
Yeah, I really have to agree with you. I think the twin flame label in a lot of ways is just sort of dressing up actually what a trauma bond is, and perpetuating essentially very unhealthy relational dynamics. Like you said, the avoidant anxious sort of dynamic that a lot of us experience. It's kind of the most prevalent probably amongst the space. And it's normalizing the chase. It's normalizing dysfunction and a lot of the distortions that keep us stuck in, and out of union, essentially. And I think it's important for us to really just differentiate what union actually is, where I would say a twin flame relationship is a lot of times anchored or embedded in this sort of idea of they're two souls that essentially complete one another, and they're two halves of the same soul, I believe is how the story goes. To me, that seems like a very like romantic, spiritualized way of defining codependency. Union, on the other hand, is the antithesis of codependency, right? Codependency, I'd say by design, is meant to keep us out of union. It's meant to continue to keep the focus external in terms of what is my partner doing? the way that you feel is impacting the way that I feel. You can't be this because I feel like this as a result. And that's essentially the antithesis of what union is. Union is actually the mirror being held up to you and realizing that we are here to become the one for ourselves. And by way of becoming the one for ourselves, which of course is more in that because it's reunifying with God, source, our creator, and coming back into union out of separation, which is the original wound of birth here within this game that we call human, being a human in the human experience. And actually what the divine mirror holds up, our counterpart, is essentially the map home to that connection. It's the bridge that it connects our humanity and our divinity, the remembrance of who we are and what we came here to do in this lifetime. And from that place is where we actually can create the most deep, fulfilling, rich relationship, because it's actually in union with God. It's two individuals who are serving God, who are in relationship with God, not two individuals attempting to complete themselves and making each other God.
Yeah, I love this. And I do believe that the myth, and from the esoteric lineages that I've studied, the esoteric couples lineages that I've studied, the myth did exist, but not like we think to complete each other. It was that humanity, like instead of being a masculine and a feminine being, we were like masculine and feminine within one being, like androgynous. And so this idea of us completing each other is a bit false. It's more that we're different and we're complements. So my superpowers as a feminine woman is different from the superpowers of a masculine man. And so this idea that we're coming, and the way I always have seen it in meditation is instead of like leaning into each other, it's like pillars of light that connect into God, into source consciousness. So these two pillars, and then it's like the merging of these pillars. Like you say, it's like two wholes that come together, but it's this uniqueness that when it unites, it's more powerful than alone.
Absolutely.
And so for those of you that do believe in the myth, like I do believe the myth that we were once unified as like
the monad to the dyad to the triad.
Yeah, exactly. And so in that sense, it was a unification. So we were like these beings, like almost like a mastermind of like a masculine and feminine energy within one being. And so that androgyny is what was lost. And so what I feel is it's that reminder also that when we're in union and in divine union partnership, this is when then our consciousness expands into embodiment. Right. And so understanding, and this is why I actually love masculine and feminine polarity work, because you can really see how it creates the polarity and the attraction when one person embodies the masculine pole and one person embodies the feminine pole. Right. Because in that sense, you're being opposites, like the two powers in one experience. And then seeing over time how some couples and relationships have suffered because they've lost this polarity, and men have become hyper masculinized and mothering and controlling and in terms of shadow aspects in relationships. And then men have become like reverted back to being a child and being more passive and less direct and masculine, which is required for creating this attraction, like poles plus and minus. And so within our divine union relationship, I do think that being mindful of how we're operating our embodiment and how it's true. Like with codependency, we don't want to be like, you need to be like this for me to be okay. But it's more like, what would bring love to the moment? What would bring attraction and chemistry and beauty to the moment? And then embodying that. So it's like that devotional piece and knowing that it's the opposites that would bring the greater attraction within the union. And it's not like trying to be everything for both, or, like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to take care and fix everything and be everything for my partner and vice versa. But it's like this dance that happens between the masculine and the feminine.
Absolutely. Completely. And I think what you're speaking to is within that dance of polarity, there has been considerable attack because from essentially, we'll just say, the darkness within this realm that wants to keep us out of union. Because if you can separate and divide the masculine and the feminine, then union is not possible. Connection with God is not possible. The creation of the divine child, aka union, in this context is not possible. And so what we're learning to in this, again, realm of duality and paradox is how can two seeming opposite forces learn how to create harmony, but understanding that is the divine design. Within everywhere in the physical reality that we know, it's the masculine and the feminine principle that together create the physical reality that we know, that we can see with our visual sense, our eyes. And so if we can, essentially, if these forces, if these agendas can interrupt that process and divide us as they have, the attack on the feminine, the attack on the masculine, the patriarchy, right? These things are not as clear cut as they may seem, but they have a very specific agenda. And the reason that union is under attack is because it is the template. It is the solution to the division of the separation that we're experiencing collectively. And if you can distort how those principles, masculine and feminine, relates and create harmony and everything in between, then essentially you can control this realm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to even share like the overt things that have created the distortion. So it's like feminism created like a hatred towards the masculine and hyper masculinized women, like with these images of women with their muscles and being like, we don't need men and we can do it all ourselves and we're strong, right? Like that was a distortion for the feminine. And then similarly, a lot of like pornography and like violence towards the feminine. It's like men felt like this is how I treat the feminine also. Like also this other like distorting the way, like what makes a man, like kind of like this machismo culture. And even like making it cool to be promiscuous and have like a lot of different women and like all of that kind of stuff, like totally distorted union consciousness. And
following carnal pleasures. A lot of times when you refer to polarity, a lot of times it's like, oh, free loving.
No.
Sex with many partners, polyamory.
No. Yeah.
Right.
That whole, obviously polyamory is like no judgment, of course, for whoever wants to explore that. And at the same time, that is not going to bring union. It creates a lot of separation and a lot of heartache and heartbreak and but it's interesting. You can work a lot on jealousy aspects. If you want to evolve your soul, there's things you can evolve through the polyamory realm.
Sure.
However, it does create, if you want to deepen, monogamy is definitely the better template to deepen in your personal development and getting to know yourself better. And in the Tao, it's talked about that the unit for a peaceful world is the couple. Because when there's a happy and peaceful couple, then the children and the family unit are happy and peaceful. And then that gets brought out into the community, into the city, into the nation, and then into the world. So the peace and the love and the harmony and the union within the couple is where we want to look to create peace on earth.
Absolutely.
And this is why it's the divine union couples that are also a part of bringing the new earth paradigm.
Yeah.
So it's a super, super important topic. And
absolutely.
I feel like,
and it starts there.
Yeah. And so I feel like we're bringing it back to the whole, even this is like the whole intention of this season of my podcast, which is the healing of the man-woman relationship for greater union.
Yeah.
So I feel like it could be good for us to close on. So inside the bonus, I know you're going to be guiding us to begin to embody that divine union within ourselves, because we know that, especially if you're someone that desires divine union, and I truly believe that every single human within their hearts really desire the divine union partnership, because it is our template. It is where all of creation is birthed from, that masculine and feminine, like you said, birthing that divine child. And so I know that we all desire it within our hearts. And when we say we don't, I feel like that's defense system and it's protection. And it could be creating that excuse for why it's not present in one's life at the moment. And I do feel like it begins now, wherever you are. Like if you're in relationship, it's the healing work. If you are not in a relationship, it's the healing work. And one more piece, like I just had a healing session with a Kyoto shaman this week, and he was talking about how like we're meant to be in partnership. He's like, we have two eyes and we have two knees. And he kept going in how everything's a pair. Like you have two lungs. And like the partnership is part of this divine design. And as a human, if we're not in partnership, it's like a deficit to every other aspect of our lives. And of course, we don't need it. However, to live our ultimate potential in love, life, business, that divine union partnership will fuel all of that. And I feel like is so important.
Absolutely.
So if share on that. Yeah.
I would just say now more than ever, union is incredibly important. If you look at the statistics, even of the youth and the young men and women who are choosing to be single versus be in relationship, it is staggering. It is concerning, to say the least. So these are products of our choices of previous generations. I believe we have a duty. It's not, going back to what I said at the beginning, relationship is not meant to be easy. And it's also the most rewarding thing that you will ever experience in your life, because it becomes the mirror that will guide you home to yourself, to the very things that you have been seeking externally to no avail, perhaps for your entire life, and likely didn't start with you. It's likely an ancestral curse that you came here to break.
I had that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think I can relate too. Yeah, so many of us.
So long. It took me 10 years to like really, really clear it fully from when I found out about it until now. And it's like, oh my God.
And that's impressive. Yeah. And so I just want to leave the viewers, the listeners with this specific note, which is, even though it's not easy, it is worth it. It is so worth it. And the more that you invest yourself in it and you lean into the edges and you do what feels maybe impossible at times, the more reward you will receive. Because what you are seeking is union. Union in and of itself is not your romantic partnership. Union is that deep connection that you're seeking, that your soul yearns for, that you're trying to find in the pursuit of success, in money, in the numerous partners, in the beauty, in the eternal life, in all of the things that we confuse with God. Divine union as relationship will reflect your path back to that deep, fulfilling connection that your soul came here to traverse. Separation back to that connection point again. That's what your soul came for. So let union, inner union and outer union, but it starts within, become that map, become that guide.
I just want to add that we seek it because we know it and we come from it. And then we incarnate, and there's like the amnesia and the separation of this reality. And so we seek to return to that from which we come, which is union.
Correct.
So we know it. We all know it. And it's just finding our way back. And it happens through healing. And it happens through what you're going to guide us through as we begin. A template to help us begin is starts with embodying it within.
Yeah. And to give a little bit of, you absolutely said it right, to give a little bit of context on it and bring our conversation full circle, when we're talking about the monad oneness becoming the polarities of masculine and feminine. Let me start that again. When we talk about the monad as oneness, God, source, becoming the polarities of masculine and feminine principle, which is the source of all creation within the material realm, the triad becomes the mother, the father, and the divine child. The divine mother, the divine father, and the divine child. Union is that specifically. All of that is God. All of that is who we are at our core, where we come from, the monad, right? So it's a remembrance. It's a journey back to oneness, not to become just one in human form, because we came here to experience duality, the paradox of our humanity and divinity, of separation and deep connection within oneness. And so this exercise is about the remembrance. It's activating the remembrance within of our own divine father. And that might seem interesting for the women that are listening. Within, our own divine mother within, and that divine child within, the creation between the divine masculine and feminine principle, union being
Luke,
one of
you're
them.
frozen. Can you hear me?
Were you saying something? So,
Luke, are you back?
I can't hear you now.
Oh yeah, now you're back.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you finish your thought?
Yeah. And so I can go into the exercise now.
Okay, perfect. So beautiful, Luke. I'm really looking forward to the bonus content. And if you want to just let everyone know how they can connect with you further, we're going to share your links and please contact you in the bio, in the content, in the comment section. Let me just re-say that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Luke, so much for all of this beautiful wisdom that we've shared today. And so before we head into the bonus content, please let everyone know where they can connect with you and find you. We'll include your links in the comment section below.
Yeah. So the best place to connect with me is on Instagram at purpose.state. And feel free to drop me a DM. You can also check out my website, purposestate.com. And I'm excited to announce that I'll be launching my community and group initiation in about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks now, entitled The Union Path, the Inner Union Initiation. So keep a lookout for that. I'll be sharing it on my Instagram account. You can join my email list through my website and through the link tree in my Instagram profile if you'd like to learn more about that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content. And remember, every Monday, the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the Ascension Path with me and for doing this great work.